Oh, hi.
Oh,
How is everyone?
I was gonna say we could do like those weird 1980 movies where the person acts like they didn't see you there. You know, like
Yeah,
Forrest Bueller, or Forrest Ferris Bueller,
yeah,
just uh, just be like, "Oh, hello there, I didn't
yeah.
see you."
Well, as I have been off air all last week and are now coming back on after a week-long break, as I've been taking them way too long. This is episode number 13 of the John Ross Show, aka TJRS. Excuse me. I need to stop drinking that Coca-Cola too much. So much.
You're excused.
Yes.
Well,
um,
I've always found it. Sorry, just a small thing here, but I've always found it interesting. People will say "excuse me," but they're incredibly surprised when you respond and you say you're excused. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes it's taken as a let us say an arrogant response.
yeah.
But I love to do it. I can't help myself.
And
You got you
that,
got to you got to do the hand gesture. Be like,
yeah,
"You're excused," and then
yeah.
dismiss them.
And I am joined as always, not as always, but actually starting tonight.
I'm
Uh,
always here.
yeah,
The
pretty much.
force is with you, John. Always, as am I.
So
Oh,
starting tonight, and then Wednesday, and then Friday, uh, my comrade, my partner in crime, my commander in chief sort of person, my right
if
hand
you,
man.
I don't know if you'd say commander in chief, and I don't know if you'd say comrade either, because I may write for a few communist outlets, but
Uh,
I am not a communist. I'm the first one they would send to the gulag.
oh, okay. I'll just say right hand
No,
man.
it's okay. You can use whatever words you want. This is your show.
Oh, exactly. I have
You
to
could
remind myself every day. Every day. I'm just too polite. I'm just too nice. I'm too.
before you know it, he's gonna explode in the middle of an episode. And people
Yeah.
are like,
Well,
he's gonna be like,
unfortunately,
God,
I haven't done that yet. There hasn't really been anything that has tweaked my memory. Usually, or tweaked my reaction. Usually, if it's faulty equipment, which has been working well as of late. I am joined by my usual Sunday stream on a Monday night, starting tonight. RC Charlie, aka RC Roberts from Ferocia Animi on Substack, will be uh, expanding his co-host role, I shall say, in a very awesome, positive way.
I'm
Be-
slowly but surely taking control of this organization.
And you'll have free.
Today's the John Ross show. Tomorrow, the world.
Yeah, yeah. uh,
Speaking of funny things, did you get the video I sent you? Where Gore Vidal was making fun of Ronald Reagan. We were talking
yes, I
about that a
did.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
The one
it made
is
me laugh because I just, dumping on Ronald Reagan is a wonderful pastime for any true, patriotic American.
yeah, definitely. Specifically on Merv Griffin, considering that Merv was a big ass
Oh,
Republican.
oh, Murph.
Yeah. Well, I've never.
I've only seen this episode, so I don't know what he's
I
like as a host. But
well, he's dead and gone, so he won't care. Um. So that's kind of our first topic. I also should do a little bit of quote unquote breaking news, even though that uh there's no newsroom, unfortunately. So Colin Powell, war criminal Secretary of State, has passed away of cancer and COVID-19. And before we will talk about that much later. So kids, hold on to your breath, hold your breath, hold on to your chairs, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. As RC's expression has slowly but
I
surely.
was gonna quote Samuel. I was gonna quote Samuel L. Jackson and be like, "Hold on to your butts."
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where that's from, unfortunately.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. Which one? One or two?
First one.
First one? Oh,
Very first one with Jeff Goldblum.
yeah. I have to I think,
Samuel L. Jackson had a very uninspired part as like a computer technician.
yeah, he
But
did.
he was trying to help them, and he's like, "Hold on to your butts." It's like, oh god, let him curse once.
Yeah, that's what he needs to. He's really good at cursing, as most
Yes.
are,
Yes,
as most people are, as I am. As I am known to throw a few four-letter words around from time to time. So, before we get into the Colin Powell, and also we're going to be watching and viewing the Ben Shapiro, I shouldn't say his name first, Anna Kasparian and Ben Shapiro debate, and we're both going to commiserate our reactions to it, because I've heard of this and I'm a week late, but I've not seen it yet, and I've been saving. Excuse me again. I'm excused. Okay, excuse me one more time. I have been saving it for a special event, a special occasion like tonight. So let's get into some let's get into it. Hold on, let me put some. I got a button here. That's supposed to be an applause button. I don't know if you heard it.
I did. I was gonna say, just add in some canned laughter, and this is Friends.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, absolutely.
God damn it. Well, now at least I'll know if my jokes are funny or not.
There's also a yell. There's that's a gunshot.
Well,
and
I was about to say, are you gonna have a thing like that Family Guy episode where Brian and Stewie start a radio show, and it's like the Dingo.
Yeah, Dingo.
I was gonna say we might want to. Well, what's funny about that ties this whole thing in there is the guest that comes onto the show for Brian is Gore Vidal.
Oh yeah,
he comes on at the end. They shot a hot dog in his mouth, and I was just like, "Oh,
Stewie's like, oh, boob job."
Right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So, everything ties into Gore Vidal.
I'm here for the lunch hour. I'm looking for Brian Griffin.
Right. I was gonna say, everything ties into Gore Vidal. He's the last pillar of American culture.
Yeah. So let's get into a little bit of Gore Vidal talk. Are there any comments? Which I've been meaning to throw up. No comments. I'll just throw this up real quick. So anybody wants to comment, just throw your comments in the YouTube, in the Twitch, in the Facebook, in the Twitter, because we need to get some people in here to comment and react. Kind of one of the things that I wish would happen.
Yeah, it's hard to be rude to people when they're not there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know how unfortunate it is. It depends on who gets mad. But
yeah. I think I need to do more controversial topics for people to throw some.
I don't know. We covered Dave Chappelle last time.
Yeah,
so that's pretty. That's right there. That's at the moment.
Maybe I need to do more than Chappelle. I mean, yeah, Chappelle. I mean, he's controversial.
Oh, you mean just but let's make sure that this doesn't become TMZ. I don't need you I don't need you chasing down drunk women who can't walk.
Yeah, I'd rather be Gore Vidal than Harvey Levin, however you say it.
I think a lot of people would rather be Gore Vidal.
Okay, enough of the talk. Let's just throw up our first
video.
Do you have it or do I have it?
I believe I sent all three of them to you. Actually, I sent three. I told you about one, but I sent you three. So you should have it. I think.
All right, folks. Let me just do this.
Human error.
Human error. And unfortunately, we're going to go on
Well,
my
I thought I sent it to
personal.
your Facebook message.
Yeah, it was. And
Okay. No worries. No worries.
we're going to have to send to my personal Facebook. Um,
Oh, yes, Nazis.
no, it's a,
No, I know what it is.
okay, so
Yeah, we'll
let's
there's there
let's
is
do Reagan. Let's do Reagan first. Or no, wait. We talked about off
the,
camera.
the one sentence that Nancy Reagan should never have said. Let's do Reagan.
Yeah. Let's start off with no, it's okay. Whoops. I just realized I still screen sharing my Facebook page. So
I
have
was about to say, yeah.
I was about to say, yeah, same. So let me the joys of live broadcasting, folks. Okay. Now let's start again.
How are you? Great
Oh,
entrance.
my Lord.
Hello, Gore. How are you?
None of us is low life. To think someday all this will be mine. How are you?
I'm well. And you?
Better for seeing you, as the Irish treacherously say.
You were just in New York, I hear.
I think I was just in New York, yes.
Being a movie star.
Being a movie star, yeah. Oh, God, why didn't you do that? You've
Well,
got the face for it. It's so
you,
easy.
You did not see me in Back to School, where I starred with Rodney Dangerfield, and you missed it.
Oh, that was my part. I turned it down.
I
And they
think
got
that's
you.
true.
No, Dangerfield
I
came to
think-
me, and I said,
Gore, I'm sorry I came to England.
I draw the line, I said, at frontal nudity. But I said, I think Vonnegut is your man for this. And the
This
next thing
may-
I knew, you were playing my part.
This may indeed be the case, because I know I wasn't the first choice, but I didn't know who the others were. I think they asked Mailer before they asked you.
No,
No?
he's the wrong height.
Getting back to Capote again. Did you say what I heard you had said when he died?
Well, I said it, but I said it in private to Jason Epstein, my editor, who had rung me from New York to say that Truman had ridden on ahead and crossed the shining river. Mm-hmm. And I did say, well, that was a good career move.
So you did say it.
I did say it, but I did not say it to the public, and Jason, of course, told everybody, and so I got full credit for having been stony-hearted at the loss of a confrère without price, the greatest jewel, the greatest zircon in the diadem of American literature.
Okay. Back in focus here. Oh, yeah. Probably one of my most favorite, two of my most favorite, I should say, most favorite people in the world as far as literature and writing. And
Yeah, Kurt
no one-
Vonnegut is a pretty good writer.
yeah, he is. I mean, I've
say.
read Breakfast of Champions. It's actually one of my favorite pieces of
Yeah.
work of his.
Slaughterhouse.
the only thing
Slaughterhouse 5. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I find I didn't know that they were really really good friends. At least not until recently.
Neither did I.
And,
What a world, huh? What a small world.
well, it turns out that he was a friend. He was friends with a lot of different American writers. Mostly in passing. For example, H.L. Mencken was friends with a lot of American writers, but that was deliberate because he was a critic and he was bringing together who he thought were the best American writers. People like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Upton Sinclair, W.E.B. Du Bois, Langston Hughes. He brought together a lot of different writers. Vidal knew a lot of different writers, but mostly in passing or through his time in Hollywood. He wrote a lot of movie scripts. For example, one of the movies he worked on had both Aldous Huxley, the famous author, and Dorothy Parker, also a famous author. Um, it's interesting the people he met. He admired Aldous Huxley immensely. In fact, I think you could argue that Aldous Huxley's first book, it wasn't Brave New World. It was I'm not looking this up on the internet. I'm definitely using my own brain here. Chrome Yellow. His first book, because Vidal stated this to Jay Perini explicitly, but Chrome Yellow was the book that most impacted Gore Vidal, and you can see it, I think, in books like Messiah, or Live from Golgotha. Very, very, and I think that kind of influence is important. I think Jay Perini is wrong in saying that Gore Vidal's literary works will not be as important as his essays. I think that his literary works are very good, very important, very serious literature.
Specifically, Palimpsest is my favorite. Of Gore Vidal, the memoir. I think the two memoirs.
Yes. Well, I would say I think his best book is probably a tie between let's see. Myra Breckenridge it's a book all in its own. It's a it fits in so many different genres. It preceded and predicted the postmodern literary movement in America, and it is one of the first books to discuss transgenderism. Way before that was something that people were willing to discuss. But I think it's a tie probably between Myra and Burr, most likely. Although I do enjoy Julian. I've been told our mutual friend Amy is actually reading Julian, and she hates it because she says that it's too let us say bulky. But I enjoy it.
If she hates the book so much, if you see her, tell her if she could give the book to me. I'll read it.
Oh, I'm gonna take that book before you do. Oh God, I don't know if she freely hands books out. Plus, she might be like me, who does the barbaric, blasphemous act of writing in her books. I don't know if she does, but I do.
Right.
I take notes in my.
Yeah.
Yes. Herman Melville used to do that a lot. He used to do that. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Yeah.
His books were a favorite of Herman Melville. And Herman Melville, it's funny. He used to write in the notes in the margin of his books, and there were various areas where he criticized Emerson. And there's one part where he wrote off to the side, and he wrote, "God help the man who squares himself to these ideas." And I mean, he's right. I don't have a lot of respect for Emerson. I don't have a lot of respect for most of the transcendentalists. I find transcendence to be Oh, it's transcendence is itself a joke. I think people who tell you to look at things with your third eye are people who aren't using their own two eyes very well. And so, I, um, yeah. But to bring it back to Vidal, um, I think, for example, I find Julian to be a very interesting book, and I think a lot of people who read his literature now are like Amy in the sense that they think it's bulky. They don't care for how in depth it goes with things or the places where he takes license with the book with history. But I think that the reason people don't like it is it's a form of serious literature.
Hmm.
You have, Vidal was very, understood the notion of literature and the role it's supposed to have. Nowadays, we write novels and such to entertain people and to be consumed. Um,
Did I mention
and
that I've been working on a novel of sorts in the
you
last
had
2.5?
you had not. I know I had mentioned to you in private, and I think to some people who know me that I took off from my job for 3 months here in order to write a novel of my own. I was not aware that you were writing a novel,
Yeah, I wrote it about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago.
though. Hmm.
It's on my laptop unfinished. I don't know if I've been kind of futzing around with it.
Oh no, I understand that. I'm writing a psychological thriller. I just needed the time to actually do it. I try to write between 3 and 6 pages a day, um, but that doesn't always happen. As of recent, for example, I was out of commission because I had um, incredibly bad back pain. But no,
I'm sorry.
that's all right. So, but no, I understand having a novel on the computer and not knowing if you can finish or not. I just realized I needed more time.
Right.
More.
Well,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
No, I just needed more time. I just needed more. Not feeling like life was being broken up between work and other things. Plus, I'm addicted to the essay style.
Right.
So I have to make room for that. But I also know that writing polemics and essays alone is a lot like trying to write your name in water. It's not, yeah, it's not gonna last. You're gonna make a ripple, but that's about it.
Yeah,
So
it's not gonna flow.
right, yeah, and so that's what novels are, at least for writers. Plus, I had agreed with Vidal that the novel as a medium was losing its power, but I think people like Sally Rooney are proof against that.
Hmm.
Um, there's another female writer, and I can't remember her name at the moment.
Well,
But
like I was gonna say, sorry to interrupt, but I was gonna
you're
say
good.
the only reason I even chose to write a novel in the first place was because I got in touch with my inner Stephen King a couple years ago. I was reading a lot of King, unfortunately. Um, I have a soft spot for the horror drama genre.
Hmm.
I still love
Right.
it, even though that some people might have their difference of opinion on him. I respect that. I
Hmm.
respect all people's opinion. So, yeah, I was getting in touch with my inner Stephen King and decided, oh, I'll try to write a novel. And I got I got more than maybe 5 or 6 pages, which it technically is not that much, but I got
Hmm.
like literally about maybe over 100 words in before I stopped, and I haven't really had any interest. Then I tried my hand at screenplay writing for
Hmm.
English class, and well, actually, it was creative writing, but I had a plot line. I had you know, a how do you say, a scenario, for what a potential film would be about. I actually showed it to a friend, and he said keep writing it and see if you can get it into several film festivals. And I don't know. I didn't really.
Well, some would argue that the movie has taken the place of the novel as the main medium in which we communicate fiction.
Right.
And you know, I think they might be right. For example, I've definitely thought about once I'm done with the novel I'm writing now, and it might end up being a short story, but
Mhm.
nevertheless, um, I do think that I might try writing a script for it, because a lot of movies or a lot of novels right now just become movies or TV
Yeah, they get
shows.
adapted
Mhm.
into
Right.
in the
And
cinema and the
and
Hollywood.
nothing would be better. Well, here, nothing would horrify me more than watching a book of mine be butchered by the hacks that
Yeah.
do the writing in Hollywood. But at the same time, nothing would make me happier if I could write the book and the screenplay.
Right.
Um, and so I don't know. We'll see. It also depends on the type
Style.
of writing. Yeah, because some people are better at screenplays.
Than
Some
others.
people are better at writing movie scripts, and some
And
people
book.
are better at novels.
Or some
Um,
people are better at writing on the internet in the form of blog or
mhm.
like what we do on Substack kind of thing.
Right? Yeah, essays.
That's,
Yeah. Sometimes essays are. I mean, for me, that's my favorite form of writing. That and book reviews are
yeah.
fantastic.
That's how one of the reasons how I got interested in journalism and broadcasting was through writing. I felt I can write good, so
Hmm.
I can go
Well,
into journalism.
and also, oftentimes people who write a lot, for example, writing for journalism,
Mhm.
writing an essay does hone your skills. Um, Hell, H.L. Mencken was a newspaper writer pretty much all his life.
Mhm.
Definitely influenced his style. He
I just
eventually,
remembered
yeah. Go ahead.
I found a Minkin book in Half Price Books today.
Oh, you
I don't
did.
know. Yeah.
Which Mencken book?
I
It,
can't I
it's all
can't
right.
tell.
It's all good. Well, I was
It
gonna say
said
you
H.L.
don't have.
Mencken on the cover, and I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
I didn't know why I didn't get it. I would have bought it, and I would have showed you, and you would."
Well, it's fine. You don't have to buy books based on what I like.
Right.
I would hope, and I'm sure you do this already, but I would hope that you would pick your own sorts of writers. Like, to bring it back to Vidal. Vidal said that every writer has a repertory of different writers that they consult with and
Right.
use.
Right.
For me, it's mostly Gore Vidal, H.L. Mencken, Dorothy Parker, and Carl Cross,
Right.
mostly. There are other writers too, but
And Rooney as well.
well,
There.
I admire her literature. I don't know if I would say that I take her style.
Mhm.
She knows how to make the mundane and the prosaic very interesting on its
Mhm.
own, which
Right.
is appreciated. You know, we have enough sci-fi novels to last us forever.
And they're still
S-
being written.
I know, of course, and some of them are good, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but it seems a lot of times that, for example, I have a friend who said that the only reason she reads is to escape this world, and I find that to be a little bit problematic.
No.
Now, sometimes, and this is preference, this is personal preference. I live my life based on my own tastes, so I have my opinions based upon those tastes. And for me,
Like
I
we all
think
do.
that, I think that a novel should try to have a little realism in it,
Mm.
um, a little something that allows us not to be so head in the clouds that we can't, find something useful in that book.
And
For
understand
example,
it.
right? Yeah. For example, Harry Potter, for me, head in the clouds. It's the hero's journey with the chosen kid. We've seen it before. You've
Yeah.
just made it. You made it accessible to children and adolescents, and apparently to adults who don't know how to grow up. So,
I count myself in that point, by the way.
well, I
I
if
unfortunately I have it's I will say it's my childhood, that whole nostalgia dope childhood thing that we all go through, and I have all 7 books in my collection in the back room, and I barely if ever choose to read them unless I feel like it.
well,
Um,
no, it's fine. I'm like a knife. If I'm not sharp with you, you'll never know if I'm working.
right.
And so, no, me having a problem with Harry Potter and some of the people who read it isn't the same as having a problem with all people who read it. It's just me
Right.
having a very strong opinion about a popular book. Um,
Have you read Harry Potter? Just out of
yes,
yes.
unfortunately. I have seen the movies
Yeah.
because my mom loved the movies and the books.
Yeah.
And it was her prerogative to basically stamp it into my brain. And she used to be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Harry Potter has glasses, and so do
I
you." It's like,
I gotta admit though, my mom was the same way. She was in her late 20s, early 30s when the first one came out
uh
as the book, and she would read it to me and at the time it was 2 sisters. I had one brother at the time also, but he was way young at the time. And she would read it to us, and then I got a copy of the first one as a Christmas gift, and she forced me to read it as a book report. And at 9 years old,
oh,
um, I've I did come to like it, and
right.
and then the movie came out, and I was recovering from a needed leg surgery, and when the movie, remember VHS, those when it was not
Yes,
on.
I do. Yes, I
It
do.
came in video stores, and my mom, she got it from the local video store, and I saw the movie, and I was hooked. And but that's me looking back now,
No, you're fine.
20 years as
Well,
ago as a kid.
here's the thing. I'm
Now, as
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
older, sorry to interrupt, but I'm
You're
like,
good.
now as I'm older, like I'm like, okay, yeah, that was part of my life then. And now that I'm older, I'm reading more what I would call sophisticated work. Probably more something of my own maturing adolescence that I'm in. Not saying, like I said, not saying that I would never go back and read those books as like a nostalgia thing, for my own benefit, and not trying to like enforce it on anyone else. But that was a time, that was a period in my life where I love I will always like the books. I will always like the movies. It's like literally 20 years since the first one came out when the first one was released as a film. Uh, and but it again, it's just not something that I'm doing at almost 30 years old, which is
Well,
the weirdest thing that my mother did when she was 30. She was reading the Harry Potter books obsessively. And I thank God, and I don't believe in God, but I'm not. I haven't yet to do that, and I hope I don't.
well, it is one thing, in my opinion, not to be too contrarian with you here, but it
No.
is one thing for a mother to buy that book for her children,
Mhm.
um, and want to read it to them, because that is, um, hell, that is a skill that is long lost.
Mhm.
Being able to connect with your children over something as interesting as a book. Um, I don't go after Harry Potter because I think that it is inherently ridiculous.
Mhm.
Um, I just don't like it. And so I want to make that distinction real quick before we move on, in the sense that if you sat there and told me you liked Harry Potter, that would be fine. I would just
Mhm.
voice my dislike of it. And I also, my mom did the same thing, not only with Harry Potter, but with Percy Jackson.
Never got into Percy Jackson, unfortunately.
It's not a bad children's novel. There's a lot of children's books. I should say children's series. Excuse me. There's a lot of them
Mhm.
that are good. My favorite would have to be, would have to be any book by Terry Pratchett or Lemony Snicket's The Series of Unfortunate Events.
My sister was a big Snicket man.
Yeah.
So
I love Lemony Snicket.
Mhm.
It is the style of the author. I believe his name is Daniel Handler. That's his actual name.
yeah,
But,
right.
but I'll call him Lemony Snicket because I refuse to
That's
believe.
the snootin'.
Yes. His nom de plume, his pen name. But
Yeah.
I loved Lemony Snicket, and the style of the author is something that I would love to replicate.
Mhm.
I don't know if I will be able to, but I would
Right.
like to. And so, children's novels in and of themselves are not bad. I don't look down on people who read novels that are marketed for children necessarily. The problem is how you use it, because it's one thing to read something for nostalgia, or it's another thing to read something because it genuinely catches your interest. But there are a lot of people who use Harry Potter, and I should expand that, not just Harry Potter. They do this with a lot of novels, even Percy Jackson, which I enjoy.
And Stephen King.
Right, but they
Unfortunately.
use those books to escape.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they judge themselves based off of, what Harry Potter house they're a part of, or they judge
Well-
themselves based off of just different different sort of measuring dynamics
Yeah.
that don't
Like
make any sense. Yeah, go ahead.
it's like, well, I was gonna say, like, whether or not people will judge them. Like if you're like, not saying you particularly or myself, just as an example, somebody who's in their late 20s, early 30s, who still admits to reading books like Harry Potter, and then they keep it to themselves, and then they don't say anything to anyone, because if they feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I still like Harry Potter, and then it's like, I still read them, it's like, oh, that person's gonna pass judgment. Like you're 31 years old, just putting it out there, just putting it
Right.
out there, and being like, oh, you still like those kiddie books? Like you should, like the whole like freaky adulting subject that it's kind of like also, and I don't like the guy at all. I'm not like the biggest fan of him, but like when Bill Maher with after Stan Lee died, like Bill Maher was like, oh, you guys, like, people read comic books, and people they don't know how to like you say, don't know how to grow up, and they need to start being like an adult. And I honestly think it was really, really reasonable. The criticism he got is like, hey, dumbass. I mean, yeah, it's like people read those books not just for nostalgic purposes, but the way that Stanley wrote those kind of books. Yeah, he was writing fictional comic book characters, but he was basing it off his own real life experience, and to be honest, also off the experience of real life events. And it's like some half-ass, washed-up ass comedian wannabe like Bill frickin' Maher, who's like dead, who looks like he should be dead as dirt at this point in his life, is like talking shit about, oh, you just like these fucking like, just fucking
Right.
shut up,
Well-
up. Like, I would say to him, like, keep it to yourself, dummy. Mind your fucking business. No wonder why no one likes your fucking show anymore.
Well, The way I see it is this.
I'm
In
sorry to
the
go on a Mar rant.
No, you're fine. No, no, we're having this discussion about literature. And it's important, at least in my opinion, anyway. This is sort of my wheelhouse, so it's enjoyable.
Right.
But let me put it this way: in fantasy literature, you have two groups of people. You have the people who take it incredibly seriously and build a personality off of it, and those people are ridiculous. And then you have the people who dismiss it out of hand, who hand wave it away. This is for children. What piece of literature isn't for children? You know, uh, I guess with a argument, maybe excluding pornographic literature, you could definitely argue that most literature is good for children in one way or another. It teaches them
Right.
something. If you
Definitely.
read, if you read, say, Jules Verne's A Thousand Leagues Under the Sea, a child will find that fascinating because they can grasp the type of imagination that was put into that book to establish a lone captain on a submarine that's spending his life away from the world. That is something that is very interesting. And so between those two, the people who take it way too seriously and make a personality out of it, and those who dismiss it out of hand, sits a lot of us, I think, or at least a few of us, who enjoy books as they are, or don't like books as they are, but we aren't going to use it as a crutch for our personality, nor are we nor are we dull enough to dismiss those kinds of novels. Because just because I don't like Harry Potter, it might, I would be willing to admit or argue that maybe I just don't care for the fans of Harry Potter as much as the books. The books themselves have some appeal. A lot of people buy them. A lot of people still buy them. And it's created an entire fantasy world based off of and that's fine. I wish more people paid attention to Terry Pratchett, who is just, if you want to see an author who writes fiction in such a way that it just grasps your attention, him and Lemony Snicket are fantastic writers, and his books could be described as children books. I consider them more fantasy, but that might be my bias, But people who dismiss those things out of hand as childish don't understand that in writing literature, no matter what kind of literature it is, if you don't aim for some kind of imaginativeness, which is akin to childishness, then your book is going to be awful. I think the only author who pulls off dull writing is John O'Hara, who has written some books, and his stuff isn't dull. He's just very, very particular about his realism. It's very descriptive.
And what he wants to write about.
Right, exactly. And so, I have my strong opinions. I dislike Harry Potter. It doesn't mean it's the worst book in the world.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Are either Terry Pratchett or John O'Hara alive today?
No. Both are dead. Terry Pratchett died not that long ago. It might have been about 5 or 6 years. John O'Hara was alive, in fact, during Vidal's life. Vidal mentions him actually in a documentary Vidal did on himself called Gore Vidal's Gore Vidal. And
good title.
Right, yeah. And John O'Hara was he was a novelist. He wrote a column for, I believe, The Atlantic, I think. But there were some issue where he was removed and then he was brought back later. But nevertheless, he was one of those writers that came up in the generation of Vidal and Mailer and Sontag. Actually, speaking of Sontag, a funny story for Gore Vidal here. Gore Vidal and Susan Sontag met one time when they were doing a show. They were doing a play called Don Juan in Hell, which is actually a play from George Bernard Shaw, which was adapted for modern purposes. It was done by Norm Mailer. And
who is still alive today?
Norm Mailer is still alive?
I think so.
I thought he died. I don't know.
Is he really?
I would have to check. I don't know.
I think he was still alive.
I don't care. I was gonna say either way. I don't care for Norman Mailer. He stabbed his wife. Honestly, for me, not.
I mean, like when you say stabbed his wife, you mean like literally stabbed his wife?
Yes, literally stabs his wife.
Holy shit!
Which caused her to leave him. You know,
so she survived the stabbing.
Yeah, she survived. And she, Norman Mailer gave some excuse that was just, I don't remember it exactly, but he tried to pretend that he couldn't help himself or something. He also wrote Prisoner of Sex. So he's just
a creepy kind of guy.
He's the kind of guy who believes the American dream is being a man going around fighting people all the time. He took Hemingway to a very dark extreme where he more or less, his idea is that the American dream is a man who goes around fighting people, just being an absolute animal, and then stabbing someone out of passion, and then forcefully having sex with somebody who doesn't want to have sex with you. It's a horrible thing. And Gore Vidal criticized him. In fact, there's an entire episode of the Dick Cavett show where Gore Vidal and Norman Mailer were on there talking about Gore Vidal's criticisms of The Prisoner of Sex. And Mailer did not like how he was being criticized, and he was incredibly hostile. He shot himself in the foot, though, because he was trying to be witty, which he's not. And if you try to be witty with Gore Vidal, you might as well just not say anything. For example, later on, there was a point where Gore Vidal was at a party following that show. And Vidal was standing, the stories conflict, but the idea is that he was standing there with Howard, his partner, and some other people talking, and that Norman Mailer came up and threw a drink in his face. And so Gore Vidal slapped him. And Norman Mailer then decided to headbutt him, like hit him with his head against his head.
Wow.
It was either that or he. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he didn't. He headbutted him actually before the Cavett show, in the green room before the show. He punched Gore Vidal when he threw the drink in his face.
Is this all in Perini's book, by the way?
Yes, it is all. It's all in Jay Perini's book, Empire of Self. Although these stories were being told before Vidal even wrote his memoirs.
Right.
But he punched Vidal, to which Vidal responded in the one way that this, I think this is one of the greatest, most wittiest remarks of all time to somebody who just punched you in the face. Because it's hard to say face when somebody punches you. But Norman Mailer punched him in the face, and Vidal responded, and he said, "Well, words again have failed Norman Mailer." And being a writer who just punched somebody in the face, that's
That is
Yes,
so witty of Vidal.
right. It will, sticks and stones may break
May
my
break his
bones, but words are
nothing.
going to be seared up here forever, noodling about until you die. So, he won that exchange without throwing a punch.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
before we go further into the Vidal clips, especially the one with Reagan, I would ask you. So would you characterize to say that Norman Mailer was a volatile and violent type of person?
Yeah, he the way Gore Vidal put it on the Dick Cavett show is that he was celebrating cruelty and violence, and going around, just being an absolute primal beast, and it's something that is not acceptable, or well, I shouldn't say not acceptable. It makes for interesting work as if you, I should put it this way. If you read a fiction where there's violence and there's evil and there's things like that, but you're using it to establish a character into a world like Game of Thrones, where you establish a character that is dealing with a world that is unfriendly,
right?
That's fine. Yeah. But he celebrates it. He tried to be the heir to Ernest Hemingway, and to treat writing, in Norman Mailer's words, to treat writing like being a boxer, and he was the champion of writers until somebody knocked him off, which is absolute stupidity, because not all writers are the same, and we're not all boxers. A lot of us are.
We're not all Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, right. Well, Rocky Balboa loses too. So,
talk about realism,
right? Yeah. And so for me, I find that style of I don't have a very high opinion of Ernest Hemingway anyway, but that's just me. I agree. Vidal didn't like Ernest Hemingway either. He called him a field and stream kind of writer, referring to the magazine.
Right.
And I agree. I think Ernest Hemingway's show or books were good as the basis for movies. But anyway, that's enough from me. Let's watch this next.
Let's do the Merv.
Well, we did Merv already, I thought.
No, we did.
No, my apologies.
On again.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Home. The White
Let me restart that.
To be really shrewd.
Gee, you must have a lot to say. My word. We have Mr. Reagan, who's received a mandate from the people.
Well, he received something. It was certainly better than the old actor's home. The White House. Now, if I were he, to be really shrewd, he ought to let his hair go white. And just simply say, and just suddenly appear, after all those years of that waxy buildup, just...
Now, wait, he denies that, and they've come up with proof, and he hasn't touched his hair.
Oh, well, maybe somebody else touches it. I don't think... I myself would be nervous to touch it, as it looks alive. I mean, that hair looks as though it might suddenly seize you. I think he looks like Melvin Douglas in Being There. I mean, he actually looks like that, but then he's, beautifully painted and so on.
Even the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, is giving him what he calls a 6-month honeymoon, where the Democratic members of the House of Representatives are not going to attack him, to give him a break going in, and you refuse to give him a break.
Oh, I refuse to, yeah. Well,
based on what?
Based on what I suppose he'll do to the country. I got a little nervous.
But the people voted him in with a landslide.
Which people, Merv? 1 in 4 voted for him, 1 in 4 voted against him, and 2 out of 4 didn't vote at all. This is not a mandate. This is barely a boy date. But whatever it is not a mandate. Now, this is my worry about Mr. Ron and Nancy is I think we could become addicted again. You know, you sort of count the chins and
But we might be in
and
better
watch
hands.
her stare. Well, I don't know better hands, but just knowing the two are there, it's like it's gonna be like an old movie, you know. And what happened when Andy Hardy got really old? You know,
Yeah.
we're old enough. Young people don't know what we're talking about, but Andy Hardy was our youth, and it was Guy Show Friday and Gee Willikins and those expressions that Ronald Reagan uses. It was another wonderful, wonderful world. It's a little geriatric now, but it'll be.
Can't we look at his track record? He did rather well for the state of California.
Well, yes, he ambled along through the governorship.
First time we ever had a surplus in the state treasury.
A surplus, which was achieved by the largest tax increase in the history of California.
But he gave it back to the people?
Just before the next election, and he kept a lot of it for the government. You know. He was kind of weird. I think if he, of course, he's 30% in taxes now. He's obliged to cut over the next 3 years.
Right.
That'll be very exciting because he wants to add $30 billion to the defense budget against godless, atheistic, monolithic communism, which is forever on the march, even now as we sit here. And this money, by divine right, has to go to the Pentagon.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, the map is getting a little small as to all those
so's the
red countries that are closing in on us over there.
The budget is getting smaller, Merv. 79% of the budget, most people don't know this, 79% of the federal budget can never be cut. It's interest on the debt, it's Social Security, it's Medicaid, it's what they call transfer payments. You can't cut it.
Well, those are not his problem. I mean,
They're not his. No, I'm telling you about what he's inherited. 25% belongs by divine right to the Pentagon so that it contain the menace of et cetera, et cetera. 25% and 79% make 104%, and that is the budget. Now, the 4% is the deficit, which will be paid off by the unborn, if there are any. I mean, if the Pentagon allows for this. So you're in a situation, he knows he can't cut it, and he does this sort of shell game with the people. $30 billion will be added to the defense budget here, and then, of course, the taxes will be lowered over here.
But he said he will get government off the backs of the people.
I wonder where he will then put it.
Wow. I mean, just wow. That is total Gore Vidal worship there. And that clip. Or total like Gore Vidal like overtaking a conservative.
Yeah. In our rather what's a way to put this? Decadent is the right word. We are in our rather degenerate media culture. People would have written that up nowadays and been like, Gore Vidal owns whoever.
Yeah.
But also you have to understand that late night show TV show hosts are no longer as witty or as brazen as Johnny Carson was, and the people who fought,
or Dick Cavett or Jack
or Dick
Bond.
Cavett. Dick Cavett had the wonderful ability of giving an interview while having a personality.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and for example, Norman Mailer decided to end that interview. The interview he had with Dick Cavett and Gore Vidal, he decided to be.
When was this? Was this after the debate with William Buckley?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Carry on.
Norman Mailer decided to be hostile and try to tell. How do I put this? Tried to tell. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. So
No.
he tried to tell Dick Cavett to ask him some questions, like telling him to move on, like be quiet, kind of being all hostile. And And Dick Cavett told him, "How about you just take these questions and fold it five ways and put it where the moon don't shine?" And Norm Mailer's like, "Oh, did you come up with that on your own, or was that something you quoted?" And he's like, "Oh, do I have to tell you a quote from Tolstoy?" And Dick Cavett was just destroying Norman Mailer in a way that even Vidal wasn't doing, because Vidal was taking it easy on him. He wasn't trying to, because he and Vidal were sort of friends.
Yeah, I mean they were of the same political in a
Well,
way.
I think they were professional friends in the sense that Gore Vidal, as he slowly but surely got older and became more removed from the writer's scene.
Right.
When
was his last book, by the way? Because
his last
he died.
book,
He died in 2012.
right? I think it was in 2010.
So like 2 years.
Or no, I'm sorry, probably about 2011, because he had all those pamphlets he wrote about the Iraq War.
Right, and his opposition to the war.
Yes, right. And I believe I had started a story earlier about a play with Susan Sontag and Norman Mailer.
Yeah.
They were doing Don Juan in Hell with Gore Vidal, and Gore Vidal was playing the devil, fittingly enough. And
so ironic.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not even ironic. Maybe it was, let us say factual. Yeah. But nevertheless, it depends on who you ask. But the interesting thing about that is Susan Sontag was talking to him at a dinner that they had. And she had written a book recently. And she asked him if he had read it. And he reaches across the table and he takes her hand. He goes, "I have read it, and I will review it for you on the condition that you never write a fiction book ever again." He definitely had his tastes. He had his views of things. Wow. But to bring this back to what we're talking about, though. Yeah, people would have probably written that video up nowadays as,
in the YouTube,
destroys.
Yeah, in the YouTube algorithm of today.
Yeah,
if like Vidal would definitely be in his hundreds.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'm not even going to say necessarily that, but I would just say that that's what we would call destroying somebody. Although I don't care for that terminology, I think it's rather immature.
Yeah, that's true. But it would like own,
right? Yeah, owned. Which leads us to Ben Shapiro supposedly owning people, only to go up to a British conservative who was asking him questions. And
we've got so far into our admiration for Vidal that we still have to watch the Casparian.
Well, would you be up for maybe saving that for Wednesday?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was.
This is a suggestion. So do you want to watch the entire debate?
Yeah.
So here's a suggestion from me. Just a co-host putting this out there. Perhaps we could dedicate Wednesday to watching it. We can watch it beginning to end, have a discussion about it. Maybe Wednesdays are the days that we watch different debates and stuff. I don't want to take too much from Ben Burgess. Maybe we don't watch debates specifically.
Hey, Ben's a good guy. Ben Burgess is.
No. I agree with you. No. I was in the middle of talking. I'm sorry. No, I know. My skepticism and the end of my sentences sound the same. But
we like him.
Right. And no, he's good. I hope to review his book on Christopher Hitchens when it comes out. I know it's out now, technically for pre-order. I don't have the money to pre-order things right now, but.
Well, with me, unfortunately, I have to buy, because this is just default. I have to go to Jeff Bezos' corporate website of Amazon to buy books like that. If if Red Emma's or any other radical bookstore, if like zero books themselves, like I'm not faulting them on this. I understand the times we live in, but if they had like a gift card system where I could put money on a card and then buy it and then have it delivered to my mailbox at home, I would do that instead of go to Amazon and have to buy books
Right.
that are Ben, like zero books or any kind of literature
Right.
that's written by Ben. So,
Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. A lot of people, just to make a very quick point here, but a lot of people, I ascribe to the English philosopher John Gray and his view of capitalism, where
mhm,
capitalism in and of itself is a historical force. There is no outside of capitalism. Capitalism is a historical force. It doesn't mean it won't change, but it means at the moment our dealings with it, are through its own means. But he distinguished capitalism in and of itself from consumerism, which he called economic regime, because for John Gray, not only are there different types of capitalism, the Western capitalism is not the same as the capitalism in Africa or the capitalism in Asia. Even the different cultures in Western Europe make their capitalism a little bit different than the
mhm,
one in America. But we deal with an economic regime, which for us is consumerism. Consumerism is our economic regime,
right,
and by economic regime, he just means the way capitalism presents itself to us, which for us is consumption. So I wouldn't feel too bad about going to Amazon and not or having to buy from them, because frankly, boycotting them doesn't make any sense. Now,
right.
boycotting them when they were trying to crush their union, which they eventually did,
That
was
makes
makes
sense.
it makes sense. But yeah, because it's a specific goal. But boycotting it forever, people who say, "Oh, don't do this," or it's kind of like people who, and I understand their reasoning, but people who go, "Oh, don't eat animals." That's not going to change how things are working. You have to find a
Fortunately,
different alternative. And so I wouldn't feel too bad about ordering from Amazon. It's not like refraining from it is going to do anything.
right,
So
right.
yeah, it's
Um,
unfortunate.
what was I
Go ahead.
gonna? I was gonna say real quickly before we get back to the subject of Gore Vidal.
Mhm.
Ben Burgess, we love him, we like him, we admire him. At least I do. I know that Charlie does as well. I mean, I could see it in your face.
I love people with sharp.
He's a good debater, and he's
I
very, very wise.
well, I was gonna say I love people with my sharp edges, meaning that I don't love anybody uncritically. I have my criticisms, but I don't think that's what this video is about. So
Right,
I would
right.
I would let it
But
be.
yeah, definitely. But
But
I would just say to my viewers, just a quick
yeah,
shout
but
out
he,
to
he's
Ben.
good. Yeah, he's a good guy. He does a lot of good writing. I enjoy his articles in Jacobin.
Absolutely.
And
Jack does some
uh,
good work for Jacobin.
yeah, and,
And
and I'm sure we have our differences, and
yeah,
those are things that
yeah, absolutely.
if he ever wanted to talk about them, we could.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but nevertheless, I find him to be a positive, a positive, excuse me,
Yeah.
a net positive to the discussion around socialism. I know there are a lot of people, especially in the populist left group,
Mhm.
like Dorites. I should probably just say Dorites and their followers, or the post
Yeah,
leftists who don't like Ben Burgess, and they sit around on their computers
and they
upset.
spew crap and like
Yeah,
retweet.
well, they have the equivalent of badly drawn avatars having slap fights. It's not
Mhm.
really,
It's
they can do it on their own. It's entertaining to people who enjoy watching idiots do idiot things. So, but yeah,
well,
no, I think he's a pretty good
yeah,
person overall.
he is definitely. So I just wanted to say shout out to Mr. Burgess, Professor Ben Burgess. I think it's Dr. Ben Burgess. I don't know. I'm just gonna say Ben Burgess.
I'm just gonna
Um,
say Ben Burgess.
yeah.
Uh,
to go check out Give Them an Argument. He's actually on right now with Megan Day of Jacobin.
He's taking all of our audience. How dare
No,
he?
no.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm pretty. What the good
Sarcasm.
thing about being in this kind of progressive left broadcast podcast media community is that we all have to unite. We all have to unite. What do you say? Unite instead
Unite.
of divide.
Solidarity. Yes.
So yeah, be solidarity with one another. And so, if I ever get any viewership, which normally I do, not a whole lot of people, but a good decent size.
Yeah.
They should go check out Ben Burgess and check out Give Them an Argument.
Now,
And they should check out Megan Day. I mean, from
Sure,
go
right.
go read the book Bigger Than Bernie.
Mhm.
I'm reading it right now, and it's very influential in my
Right,
and
yeah.
for me at least.
Now, I will
so,
say this to bring this back to the conversation, but a good segue. You had asked me before what
Mhm.
Gore Vidal's politics are, how to describe it.
Yes.
Now,
And the only I will say kind of add on to it before, because again, yes, Gore Vidal ran for office. He generally was on the left, but he ran more as like an alternative to the Democratic Party. Like he ran as a Democrat, but he ran as like, when you think of Bernie Sanders, you think of him running against the establishment sort of thing. At least that's how I would put it. I could be,
well,
jumping
yeah,
the gun a little bit.
he did that with Jerry Brown when he ran
Mhm.
for the Senate in the 80s.
Yeah.
For Kennedy, he definitely tried to use the Kennedy ticket, but he had different talking points. He talked about infrastructure and funding education.
Mhm.
Now, to go from the only person I've seen give an official definition of Gore Vidal's politics is Jay Perini,
Mhm.
who said that he was a Tory socialist. Now, Tory, for those who don't know,
Mhm.
is the Conservative Party for the British. They're not, there. Some people make the distinction between the Tories and us. I don't know, or the Tories and the Republicans. I don't know if that distinction necessarily exists anymore. You do see it, for example, when Ben Shapiro went on BBC.
Mhm.
You
And
start,
got into
it got into it with an older a British conservative,
presenter.
presenter. He that you start to see the difference between Tory and Republicans, because Tories tend not to be that big on. You can't here. I should I should preface this. Nowadays, this is not the case.
Mhm.
But at one point, Tories were less concerned with social issues and more concerned with finance.
Mhm.
They were more concerned with kind of they thought that if you put the finances in order, that the traditional values of England for them
Mhm.
would be preserved in a way. But nevertheless, so Jay Perini called Gore Vidal a Tory socialist, and
Mhm.
he described it as saying that Gore Vidal wasn't against sort of a structured republic that has, powerful, maybe not a powerful government, but has a government that can handle things in times of crisis.
Right.
And he believed in a government that was financially responsible. But he balanced that with the fact that he thought that anybody who used their power unjustly against the working class
Mhm.
deserved to be condemned, removed, restrained, lose your power. The misuse of power
Mhm.
was against the working class was his main concern.
Right.
Now, he described himself as something of a populist, and he argued this because his grandfather, T.P. Gore, was a populist. He actually helped found the state of Oklahoma.
Right.
And
Did not know that. But
Yeah, and he was a populist in the form of, say, William Jennings Bryan.
Mhm.
He was a populist in that sense. So a populist is a little bit different from a socialist. And I use the word populist now in a derogatory manner, but at the time,
we all
populist,
do.
right? But right now, but back then, excuse me, back then, a populist was somebody who was for the people. They believed in helping agriculture. They believed in helping, um, making sure that the people weren't stepped upon by big corporations. Populism, the Populist Party are who birthed, birthed the progressives in the United States, and so Vidal saw himself as something of a populist, where he thought that the people should have the power. Um, it's kind of hard to describe his politics by conventional means, because you know there were some things about the government where he said the government shouldn't be involved. He doesn't think the government should be involved. Excuse me. The government should not have any involvement with, say, our choices of sexual partner
Right.
or how we have sex. They should not be involved in things like abortion.
Mhm.
They should not be telling businesses to make us take lie detector tests and drug tests. He didn't think that any of that should be going on.
Mhm.
So it's just a tad bit, very tad bit libertarian, and I use that in the very
That's like the next thing I
broadest
was going
sense.
to say was like it's kind of very libertarian of him.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, he thought the government, and this is where he's not libertarian. This is why it's more populist. Is while the people should have power and the ability for the government to leave them alone, he still believed that the government had a role to
Mhm.
play. For him, the government, the government's relationship to the people is that of having a debt. And it's not a debt of the people to the government, it's the debt of the government to the people.
Right.
He believed, and the way he put it was this: he said, look, a government that doesn't give back to its people
Mhm.
is not a society. It's a dictatorship that's held together by force.
Mhm.
But if you give back to the people and you give them a reason to be in your country, then you are a government and a society. And so what he meant by give back or give to the people would have been public transportation, universal health care, um, you know,
College,
college,
library system, all
yeah,
those things.
library system, infrastructure. The
Mhm.
infrastructure should be pristine as far as he's concerned. Um, he was also isolationist. He didn't think we should go to war. He was even
Definitely.
hesitant about going to war in World War II, but he did join the army after we
Right.
declared war. But he, so there's like 5 different labels. He's a Tory, is what Tory socialist is what Jay Perini argued. I
Mhm.
think all he's trying to say is that Gore Vidal was very critical of social movements. Um, for example, the gay liberation movement didn't care for him very much
Really.
because he didn't believe in being gay or being straight or having an identity like that. He believed that we all had desires for men or women or whoever, and that
Right.
those do not define our personality. They are just impulses.
Right.
He didn't think that there was a definitive manner of talking about that. He would always point out that you know sex was an act, not an adjective. And so the gay liberation movement didn't care for that. The gay liberation movement was very similar to how it is now. And so that's probably why Jay Perini says Tory. He was very critical of social movements. He wasn't one to go stand on a picket line with anybody.
Right. Or maybe not wave a flag, so to speak, like be out in the protest movement, unless someone forced him, or
Right.
someone go
Well,
took his
he
hand and shook his hand,
right.
or goaded his hand, however you
Right.
say it.
Right. Yeah. He would not put foot to pavement.
Yeah.
He, and this is very much my position on things. He never accepted a social movement without being critical. He was willing to admit where a social movement maybe wasn't doing very well, or maybe overlooking things that were important. So that's why they say Tory. Plus, he did kind of live the life of a patrician. He, he had a driver, he had a large house, he had cooks, servants. Um, I basically in the manner that celebrities do now.
Right.
It's how he lived.
But he's still the person that the left wants as their own, which I can understand why.
Oh, right. I was getting to that. Absolutely. And so, but I wanted to go through the labels. He's also called a socialist, and I promise this gets concise.
Yes.
But he was called a Tory socialist, and he would be a socialist in the sense that he thinks that the government should be protecting the working class by organizing society in such a way that the working class gets benefits from the way the government works, which we've already talked about.
Right.
Where if I'm working class and I have to work 40 hours a week and work in a dangerous situation, he thinks I should be able to have health care and the ability to go to college, the ability to make things better. So a Tory and a socialist. He's also considered a populist, which we've already explained. Yes. He very much thought that the will of the people shouldn't be thwarted by the government in any way. He was an isolationist, as we discussed.
He didn't believe in war.
Well, it's not so much he didn't believe in war. He didn't think that the United States should be intervening anywhere. In fact, he evoked George Washington talking about this, and he said, well, Washington said America should not have allies and enemies. It should have interests, which I agree with, frankly. We should have interests, and we should not be invading other countries and intervening to, achieve some protection of allies or some, make the world safe for democracy. We don't need to do that.
Right.
Which leads to the fifth and final label, which is the label I would give him. I would call him a radical. I'm referring to the way in the French, from the French Revolution, there was born a term called radicalism, where I think that Vidal sort of is a radical in the sense that his point with society was ultimately to change it. He thought that its social mores were bad and outdated, that they were the product of an older age, where maybe those things made sense at some point, but they don't now. He was very much a student of power. He understood that politicians that go to Congress or become president are not there for our interests. They are there to satisfy their own desire for power, and that the people should have the ability to coerce and to stifle that desire for power.
Right.
And he was radical in the sense that he undermined the positions of his day that were usually accepted. Um, you know, he thought that homosexuality was just as normal as being heterosexual. He thought that,
considering that he was,
yeah, well, he,
or he may have been bisexual.
he
I mean,
well, he had a very complicated relationship. He was bisexual,
to
but
an extent,
the way Jay Pretty put it is that he might have been bisexual in the sense that he had relationships with both
men
men
and
and women, but he definitely preferred men. So, do with that as you will.
yeah,
But
interpret it as you wish.
right, but he ultimately, he was against. He said that we had in America the Holy Trinity of Freud, St. Paul, and there was another person, and I can't remember exactly who that was. But he pointed out that very often society kind of, um, it was born of certain ideas that no longer made sense.
Right.
He was big on pluralism. He thought that America was forcefully united through Lincoln. Like, not saying that Lincoln was bad or that the end of slavery was wrong. He agreed that, Lincoln needed to win
Mm-hmm.
and that slavery was bad. But he also believed that Lincoln was less concerned about slavery
Right.
and more concerned about creating and maintaining a union.
Right.
Lincoln to America is the same as Otto Bismarck to the Germans, in the sense that he definitely united a nation that was sort of united, but at the same time was fairly distant from each other.
Right.
But Gore Vidal believed that, the way the Native Americans were treated, they should have been, given their land back. He thought that people should be allowed to have their own groups. He loved the system in Switzerland, which is a lot to discuss and just, too much to go into.
Yeah.
But yeah, frankly, he was a radicalist, in my opinion.
So-
Sometimes he leaned to the left. Most of the time he leaned to the left. Sometimes he leaned to the right. But, he was a
on
radical.
those rare occasions he would. So, like, this kind of brings back the question I'd want to ask was that I brought before, which was that he ran as sort of as a alternative on the Democratic Party to Bernie Sanders. So, given if he were alive today, given that radicalism that he embraced, and given the fact that and the socialism to an extent, of course, Bernie Sanders is a democratic socialist to Vidal's Tory socialism, but given the fact if he were alive today, would you believe in some way, or maybe not even, I would say speculate, would he support someone like Bernie Sanders, or is that sort of like a hard question to
He
is difficult to
supported Ralph Nader,
right.
I think, twice. And so I think Sanders evoking FDR, who Vidal both liked and disliked for various reasons, would have convinced Vidal to vote for Bernie Sanders. Because first off, Vidal, even when he was talking about George W. Bush, and even as Obama came up, he was talking about there was a need to take care of the infrastructure, to have something Franklin Roosevelt-esque in dealing with our domestic politics. And so ultimately hearing the way because Sanders, yes, is a democratic socialist, but it seemed that his platform was definitely FDR-esque. And so I think Vidal would have agreed with that. He definitely would have liked Biden, who had many different things to say about him. Yeah, Um,
It's not surprising though that he had many weird things to say.
he didn't care for Biden voting for the Iraq war. He also didn't care for the fact that basically Biden is a political opportunist.
Right.
Um,
Kind of makes you wonder what he would think now that Biden is
no,
ascended to the nation's
he would have
high.
been critical as always, even as far back as 1968, when he was having his discussions with William F. Buckley, his debates. William F. Buckley tried to put him in a corner
Mm-hmm.
about, oh, the Democrats want this. Vidal would frustrated him a little bit, and he was like, look, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not of the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
I am,
He's his own person.
he's like, I'm my own person, and I'm more of a populist, is what he would say.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a good view of communism either.
Right.
He was a radicalist, and he had various different views.
Mm-hmm.
He was very sharp tongued about a lot of things. He didn't care for communism. He didn't think it was helpful.
Did he care
Sorry.
Did he care all about Marxism in a way, or what was
he? So there was a long video that was done of him it's a profile of a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and he seemed to compare Marx to So I should probably put this in context. He talked about Christianity, and he talked about how Christianity was one of the first religions to say that they were absolute.
Mm-hmm.
They were, all true. I mean, Jesus says, "I am the truth and the way." So, he pointed that out, and he compared it to people who believe in Marx without thought.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything that I haven't seen anything specifically he said about Marxism outside of that comment, but it seems to me that he probably didn't like Marx very much. It doesn't mean he hated Marx. It's not like that.
Right.
Vidal is a very eclectic kind of thinker.
Person.
And so he was on the side of the socialists, but he wasn't he didn't really like Marx a bunch. He didn't care for communism very much, although he would defend the Soviet Union at various points. And I share a lot of Gore Vidal's skepticism of Marx, and it's not to say that Marx is a bad thinker.
Yeah.
Because a lot of conservatives will not like Marx, after having not read him, and they will then go, "Oh, he's a bad thinker." There's no moral quality to Marx, not for me. But I disagree. I don't quite agree with some of his ideas. For example, I think it's inevitable for a society to have a class system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a democracy is just the reason class is such a big deal in democracy is because democracy has the least hindrance from higher up. And so what happens is people organize themselves into class structures. I also don't care for revolution, both in the sense that every time people talk about revolution, I feel like it's somebody evoking it's like people talking about, oh, Jesus will be back, and it's like, well, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah. So like when to bring it back to Sanders, when he talks about the political revolution, like you kind of look at that and go, you have a skeptical view of it. Not to say that you don't like Sanders, because I sense that you're a
I voted for him. I voted for him, and I voted for him in the primary in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I have his sticker. I have his sticker on the back of my car, which led to a few confrontations with
Really?
yes, and that those are stories for another day.
Yeah.
But
Def-
nevertheless, um, I am skeptical of revolution on two fronts. One is it always seems to be something that's on the horizon, but it's never here.
right.
But at the same time, um, a lot of people who like revolution or talk about revolution, and not everybody. For example, Bernie Sanders is not an example of this, but a lot of people talk about uh, revolution do so with a sort of bloodlust.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, we should just kill all the landlords. And it's like, well, why? Why are we killing all the landlords instead of fixing the class system? Because for me, and this is actually something I attribute to Marx, I think
Mhm.
Marx made this point, he made it very well, is that we can't see people and class interests as the relationships we have with people. For example, just because my landlord is really nice to me, hypothetically, doesn't mean that, why would I go against her? She's such a nice person, or he's such a nice person. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is their interests don't match yours. Their
Mhm.
interests are specifically against yours. And so you have to deal with people's interests. And and I just find that violence in the name of socialism or in the name of communism or the name of fascism or anything
Mhm.
is not a good thing. Aldous Huxley said that the one thing people look for most in a crisis is for you to give them an excuse to be cruel to their fellow human beings. And so for me, when I hear revolution, I hear somebody giving me an excuse to be mean to somebody,
Mhm.
without remorse. Because oftentimes, most of the time, human ethics is determined. Or I'm sorry, most of the time, human ethics is a matter of convenience. We are ethical when it suits us, and so revolution to me allows for this convenience to be flummoxed, where we get around it, we circumvent it. We tell ourselves, oh, doing these horrible things is okay because I have it justified in my head. I think we have to deal with interests and we have to deal with the system itself. And I personally think that the best way to deal with the class system is not necessarily to destroy it, because I think it will be rebuilt just in a different way with different people on the bottom. I think the point is just to make the class system as mobile as possible. Unfortunately, I'm very pessimistic. A lot of people would not enjoy my criticism.
Mhm.
And that's because a lot of people really want revolution to be real. And a lot of people want the utopian visions of some Marxists, not Marx, but some Marxists. I know Marx himself did not give a utopian vision. But some Marxists have utopian visions, and they want to believe that it's real. And so, they, it's a, you know, revolution for me. I would be happier if it didn't come than if it does. And I think that it would make more sense and be better for society as a whole if we did things like start unions, find ways to make the class system mobile.
Workers co-op.
Yeah, or perhaps a workers' co-op, or just various different things that we can do. Because um, I would consider myself, if I had to put myself in a spot,
If you had to
is
put yourself in a box.
right. I would be a radicalist, much like Gore Vidal, but I take a lot of my social uh, and economic theory from Jean-Paul Sartre, the French philosopher. And he believed that when you upended something and just, defeated the system, you ended up setting up another one, which itself became regressive over time. And so for me, a revolution doesn't necessarily solve anything. It sets up a new system. You might enjoy this new system. In fact, if you're a part of the revolution, you might benefit from the new system.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it just puts different people at the bottom.
Mm.
And the point is if we're going to have a revolution, which Vidal definitely thought we were in pre-revolutionary times before his death. So perhaps, but
It's a shame to see. It's a shame to say that he did not get to see the so-called revolution.
Well, I don't know if we've had a revolution yet. That seems to be up for debate.
Yeah.
But
Well, on the other side of the coin, though, I should also say he's lived through several centuries of revolution. So he would, if he were alive today, he'd probably say, I've seen enough revolution in my
well,
lifetime for my lifetime."
he hasn't lived through several centuries. He only lived one life, but he and
Yeah, when I
his
say several centuries,
right,
I mean years, decades. Kind of.
right. His grandfather and him together, as he said that his grandfather would tell him everything about, his grandfather knew people, or like knew relatives and stuff who had fought in the Revolutionary War.
Mm-hmm.
And then he relayed those stories to Vidal, who then lived through, World War II, the Cold War, and then the War on Terror. And so, he had a good deal of knowledge about a lot of America's history. But yeah, no, he definitely, there have been various attempts at revolution. I say that there's a better way to go about this, and this is a solution that Vidal even proposed.
Mm-hmm.
There's a article in the Constitution called, Article 5, which would allow for the creation of a new constitution by basically rejecting the one we have now and sending delegates from the various state legislatures, bringing them together to create a new constitution. It's kind of the self-destruct button
Mm-hmm.
in the Constitution. And so I think that if we're going to do, this is why a lot of people, this is why I say that one of the problems with the left is an inability to grasp power. If you really want a revolution, or if you really want change, we should say, maybe not revolution, but if you really want change, tell your representatives to support Article 5 and the evoking of Article 5.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that's too close. That's too near. A lot of people treat leftism and revolution and change as a game so that they can be right with their avatars. They want to have a Twitterati jihadi. They don't really want change.
Right.
And so for me, ultimately, that would be my goal. If you're going to change the entire society, go with the Constitution, Article 5. But I am skeptical of revolution. I would be a radicalist. I base it on Sartre's work, though, where society is created or is maintained through regressive structures that we are meant to change to allow a society to change. It's up to us, and we often don't do that.
Right.
But it's hard. It's hard because on one side, I am not very optimistic about us having a revolution at all, because I don't think people tend to do that.
Or they don't understand it as much as they
Right.
think.
Or you get it to where people who are not good people try to do the revolution. For example, January 6th.
The capital. Right?
Yeah.
The
That's an
insurrection.
attempt. That's an attempt at revolution. It's not the revolution we want.
Right.
It's fascism,
Mm-hmm.
or close at the very least, right-wing populism.
Mm-hmm.
But they tried to take what they wanted. And if that's not what revolution is, then but for me that's what it is. And unfortunately, America has a very reactionary tradition. So
Mm.
yeah, it's going to be the reactionaries who decide to go and storm a building, and it's horrible.
Yeah,
But yeah,
without a doubt.
right. So um, I think that's a place we can end that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we talked about revolution and then it's over.
We
But
talk. Yeah, we go from Gore Vidal to literature to writing back to Vidal and talking about revolution.
right.
Uh,
Well, I
which
mean, if that's not leftist, then I don't know what is.
right.
Right.
Well, so just to kind of wrap it up here, we
Mhm.
didn't get to talk about the death of Colin Powell in our reaction. So I think
I have a one sentence reaction
no
to
problem.
Colin Powell's death. Um, it was a wise career move.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Right.
Uh, my one sentence reaction is war criminal is gone, is done and dusted.
Yeah.
There are war criminals, and he was part of the war criminal regime of George W. Bush, our generation's worst president. Donald Trump, for all his madness in a one term,
Yeah.
doesn't erase
Yeah.
the 8 years of the George W. regime. And like Donald
Yeah.
Rumsfeld before him, there is a place for war criminals, and that is down below.
Right.
Well said.
Right.
That's my reaction. So I can cross that off the list here.
So you go. There you go. But we talked about the most important thing, Gore Vidal.
Gore
Uh,
Vidal. We talked about
um,
his literature writing, his politics, his
mhm.
his personality. We got into a little bit of his personality, which is great.
Yeah, his personality, personal life.
Hmm.
He was quite the gossip, so I think he would have probably enjoyed being the topic of gossip.
Yeah,
But
definitely. See, now it makes me want to go get Jay Perini's book from the public library here in the city. So
uh,
because it's there,
yeah,
it's there.
Well, I was gonna say it's a long read, but it's worth it.
So real quickly. So Perini is Jay Perini, who wrote Empire Cell, was friends with Vidal, or yeah, Vidal. And
Yes.
so, real quickly, in a short answer, how did they meet?
Um, I believe they met in the 80s.
Hmm.
Jay Perini is a writer himself and a poet. And they met, I think they had the same publishing house. And they ended up meeting by accident. Jay Perini actually didn't want to do his biography, Vidal's biography, and he more or less waited until Vidal died. Which I understand because Vidal very thin skinned.
Yeah.
So
Well,
um,
he will also before he wrote 2 memoirs of his life beforehand, so
right.
there's pretty much already out there about his life.
Right. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna get the Perini book tomorrow. I'm actually don't have a school day
Right.
tomorrow. It's staff in service at MCC Penn Valley. So
Right.
lucky
The
me.
the Perini book is what the movie they were making with Kevin Spacey before they shut that down.
Yeah.
That's the book they based it off of. So
And oh, what we really would wish that movie would
yeah.
just come out.
Damn it, Kevin Spacey.
Damn it! Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's.
But hey,
Oh,
I was gonna say that's a good way to bring this to an end.
yeah, definitely.
We curse Kevin Spacey.
Not enough, but we did our best. Curse you, damn it, Kevin Spacey, or damn it, curse you, Mr. Spacey. Yeah, I'm gonna stop.
Right.
So Charlie, it was grand to have you on as the new format of you now being on 4 nights, 1 day and three nights a week. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm seriously looking forward to this as
Right.
the show continues to grow, expand, and evolve.
Right.
Uh, so as always, if you wouldn't mind, would you tell my loyal
Um,
listeners and viewers where to find you?
so you can find me on Substack, ferocia.substack.com. And the title of my Substack, the name of it is Ferocia Animi, FEROCIA ANIMI. I will actually be on Movie Night Extravaganza, their podcast tomorrow,
Mhm.
with Amy and Amanda, who've been on here, along with Forrest and Andy.
Yeah.
So, um,
That's Amy Bell and Amanda Fioriante of These Are Bad Movies, Forrest
right,
Miller of Movie Night Extravaganza, and J. Andrew World, I should say, of Bad Takes podcast with
right,
Joe Payne. So
right, yeah, and we'll all be on there talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, the first one.
which I have
One,
heard but I have not seen.
yeah,
My younger brother's the horror movie fanatic.
yeah.
I'm
I'm
the
gonna
Stephen King novels.
right. I'm gonna be watching it tonight, actually, to study up for it
Take
because
notes.
I haven't seen it before. But yeah, I'll be on there tomorrow at 8 p.m. So
Okay.
if you want to catch me on there as well, you can. Um, and um, I'm also a recurring guest on here,
Hmm.
as well as the podcast. These are bad movies with
All
Amanda
right.
and Amy. So
And go check all that out. Go
right,
subscribe to Broken Enemy. Subscribe to These Are Bad Movies and Movie Night Extravaganza. And while
right,
you're at it, subscribe to Bad Takes. So
yeah,
I will see you Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central.
right,
As all right. So just a referral, we're going to postpone the Kasparian Shapiro uh, viewing of of their debate and our reaction to it Wednesday night. So hopefully, looking forward to that.
all right.
All right.
See ya.
See you soon, man. All right. That was one swell first night back after such a long week off. I'm looking forward to this new format. It's going to be better than me just throwing up YouTube and articles, which I will still do, by the way, if I have to cite some sources. But as always, catch me tomorrow. Catch TJRS, the John Ross Show, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 on YouTube, Twitch, and now on Facebook and uh, Twitter. I'm flubbing my words. Read me on, or actually, also, catch the Sunday stream with RC Charlie. Uh, again, a Ferocia Enemy at 12 p.m. Central. Again, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. Read me on Substack. I have one as well. TJRS.substack.com. I have to start blogging there weekly. So follow me on all my social medias down below. Twitter is John Ross 1990 at John Ross 1992. Facebook is John Ross. Twitter is Jonathan. Twitch is Jonathan Ross. Yeah, I'm starting to get mixed up. If you can, if you must, if you will, if you're able to, donate to Patreon at patreon.com/TJRS. Please, as always, as always, if you're watching on YouTube and on Twitch, please give me a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to get these amazing videos and live content that I do every night, that I slave over, that I edit, that I do what I can. So with that, I am signing off. Let me hit the graphics. Okay, so I will see you guys tomorrow. Left is best. Rest in power to Michael Brooks. Rest in power to Ed Asner. And I will see you tomorrow. Peace.